Hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. So I wanted to follow up after my last video where I spoke about, suicide awareness and suicide prevention. I wanted to do another video to about us, the people who have now left behind to mourn the loss of a friend or family, someone that we knew who died from suicide. So, how do we deal with it? There's so many emotions surrounding suicide as a person who's now left to deal with this loss. For some, we talk about guilt. Like, was there something I could have done? What should I have taken that phone call? Should I have returned that text? Should I have went over when they said they weren't doing well? Should I have checked in? Should I have told somebody? Should I have done something? There's so many feelings surrounding guilt. Was it something I did? Was it something I said or something I didn't or did not do? There's also the feeling of resentment. You're feeling like, okay, they knew we were close. They knew if they told me that they felt this way, I would have gotten help for them. I would have intervened. I would have done something. They knew they could come over and they could call me. They knew they could ask me whatever the reason is. So we have those feelings. Then, if you're a parent, the feeling of fear, because you're thinking to yourself, let's say this one of your child that committed suicide, you're thinking to yourself, how will this affect my family? Will their siblings or other think that it's okay, or will they know how to deal with it? You fear it happening again. You fear the fact that maybe you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So there's so many feelings surrounding suicide when you are left as a survivor deal with this trauma. And it is trauma because whether you witnessed it directly, like, saw the person in that state, but it impacted your life. So now you're left to deal with this trauma of how you're going to navigate your life without this person. And there's no specific way of how to do it. The way how people cope with any loss or any situation is based on so many factors. What we call like your coping mechanisms. How have you coped in the past? What have helped you to get past certain moments? And nothing is to get past, but just to deal with it. Because getting past can be difficult. It can take years to get past that. And sometimes not going to get past, but just how to deal with or to live in the situation and to live with the reality of this loss. So I know sometimes it's based on culture. So if you're in a culture where suicide is like, it's something that should not happen, or the person commits suicide is the biggest sin they committed, and they would not be forgiven, then you yourself may feel as though you shouldn't forgive that person. That person is wrong and that person does not warrant forgiveness. So then you take on that feeling of, I'm not going to forgive this person, and try to move on from it without dealing with the fact that you lost someone that you cared about. So that's another thing. Also, it's based on awareness. It could be a case where you just don't know how to deal with it. You never really had anybody in your life that committed suicide before, so this is new for you. So you just don't know how to deal with it. You just don't know how you should deal with it. And then also too is also being aware that maybe it was also something that you couldn't have controlled. And also sometimes a lot of people feel guilty because they feel like could have done something. Maybe you could have said something different that would have probably delayed the person committing the suicide. Maybe it could have prevented the suicide at that moment. But it's hard to say because sometimes the people who commit suicide don't necessarily call or cry out for help. Sometimes we don't always know what to look for because the signs were not that obvious, whether you lack the ability to notice the signs or the person never showed the signs to you. So that's also another thing as well. So it's different feelings surrounding it, suicide, but also one of the things to remember that you are now left here and that person somehow felt as though their life was better off with them not being here anymore. And if you know that's not true, then you and yourself now should go ahead and live your life to the fullest. Live your life, not necessarily nothing about this person, but knowing that you now have more purpose to live. You're going to now live in a sense that that person's not here. So the dreams that they had are no longer going to happen. The goals that they want to achieve are not going to happen. So you now are here present in the land of the living where you can now pursue your goals, pursue your dreams, live life, not necessarily through their lens, but in a way where you can be like a tribute to their life. So if it was like, for example, a loved one with a partner, that person was ambitious about giving, that person's ambitious about cooking or whatever, you can take on that task if you want to help bring that those memories of that person. If it was someone you went to school with, like in my case, that person, I'm living my dream, like I'm trying to pursue my high level of education to see what I can do, but that person no longer has the chance to do. For your children, it's very hard because we want the best for our children. It's one of those things where we never think as parents that would ever happen to our children. So that's a very difficult one. And sometimes if you don't know what to do, it's okay to get therapy. It's okay to get help for yourself. So whether it be you talk to your provider, talk to your doctor, talk to a nurse, talk to anybody. The same people that would have talked to for those who were looking to or thought about suicide, we can talk to those same people for us now who are left to deal with the trauma of just not knowing what to do. So once I said, you can talk to your pharmacist, talk to the police officer, talk to your teacher, talk to your doctor, talk to your social worker. The same number as the 988 crisis line number is also there for help. For those who are now left as survivors who need help, just somebody to talk to. Because even though you may not have a thought of committing suicide yourself, the trauma of the suicide that was committed is impacting your life. So let's remember that we have to do the best we can each day, and some things are out of our control. And realize that you are here and you have another day to do good, to do the right thing, to live a fulfilling life the best that you can. So I'm not going to say don't beat yourself up, but I'm also going to say is that just try to know that you're here and there is hope. So I wish you all the best. Take care.